I remember this story clearly, as it always stuck in my mind whenever I think about playing hide and seek in the dark, or whenever I pass by an alleyway. I'll never forget what happened. It was in the fall, the start of October, and me and my 3 siblings went to visit my mom at her apartment. I have a sister, I'll call her Jess, and my 2 brothers, I'll call them Mike and Eli. My parents got into a divorce 2 years before that, and we barely saw my mother. So this was a way for our dad to be a good parent and allow us to visit, even though he wasn't required to. My mom's apartment was in the sketchy part of town. A lot of buildings around the apartments, but it always felt so empty, even with it being so crowded. My mom's apartment was next to an alleyway, which was also considered an entrance over to the apartment complex itself. That's what I mean when I say it was in a sketchy area. If you were to search around for it, you probably wouldn't even be able to find it, unless you were to go driving down a long dark alleyway. My mom's apartment was on the 2nd story, and my siblings and I were always excited whenever we had the chance to visit her. I loved my mom. She was small and cozy. Her apartment too was also very comfortable. It reminded me of my grandma's place, with soft furniture, unnecessary decor laying around. Another great thing about her apartment is her neighbors. A while back when we visited, we made friends with the neighbors downstairs, a boy and a girl, who I'll call Zach and Chi-Chi. Zach and I played a lot in the parking lot area of the apartment complex, next to the alleyway. Typical games like cops and robbers, tag, and kickball. But this day in particular, we decided since it was October, near Halloween, we should play hide and seek. He came up with the idea of playing it outside at night. My siblings of course wanted to join, and we all decided that at 9 o'clock, we'd all leave our rooms and go play. Since it was October, night came by pretty fast, and so did the dark, which resulted in pretty spooky lighting that we wanted to have. It was me, Zach, Chi-Chi, my sister, and my 2 brothers all playing. So once it hit 9 o'clock, we all did exactly as planned and left our rooms and joined each other outside. It was quite dark around the corners of the building, but the tall lampposts lit the parking lot with its orange rusty color. Whenever we play a game involving a tagger or seeker, we did that little game of bubblegum in a dish. So tonight we did just that, and we did it until Zach became the seeker. Everyone ran off into their little hiding spots, not too far off the complex boundaries, but not only limited to the parking lot itself. I remember I ran with my sister Jess, who I always stuck along with because she was the oldest. We ran over nearby the back of the apartment building, over by the large garbage tins. The only way to go here was to enter the long alleyway and go further down until the end of the building was exposed. And that's what we did. We figured that they wouldn't go all the way over here, so it was the perfect spot. As Zach yelled ready or not, the game began. At first it was exciting, but the excitement quickly went away once we actually started to just wait for him to find us. A lot of silence, except the noise of the night. I started to get impatient, and so did my sister, but she whispered to me that they eventually will come by and find us. But a couple minutes later, we started to get bored. I did, at least. I said, maybe we hid too well, and she laughed. She told me that maybe we should just go and forfeit since it's becoming a little late. We started to get through the garbage bags and aside the large garbage tins, and then we were dead middle of the alleyway. That's when my heart dropped. I faced the end of the alley and met a figure standing in the alley light. I knew it wasn't anyone I knew, since the person was extremely tall, as if someone put on extra inches in their shoes to look taller. And the light made it hard to see their face since it was directly from the top, and so their hair made a large shadow on it. But then I realized something. Their hair, it was an afro, and it was colorful, like a clown wig. The worst thought came into my mind. It was a clown, and looking at the clothing, it did appear to be a clown. It wasn't even Halloween yet, so why was there someone dressed as a clown in the alleyway? What was scary was that the person just stood there, not moving a single muscle, and they were staring right at us. My sister pulled me back, seeing that there was something strange going on. She told me we should probably go back with the others, and so we did. We went down the long alleyway in hopes to find our friends and brothers. Luckily, we found one of my brothers, Mike, and then Chi-Chi was also there. Mike was confused as to why we were just walking out in the open. He thought we were still playing. We told them that we saw something weird, and we explained the weird guy dressed as a clown at the end of the alleyway. Where we were at was still technically in view of the clown, and so we moved aside to show them what we saw, and that's when we started to realize the situation was much more than we thought it was. The clown was closer, watching us and waving at us. Now we saw its face. It wasn't normal makeup. It was all black, like they didn't want their face to be seen. The only feature we could notice was their eyes, which to me, as a kid, made it a lot more scary. And then suddenly Chi-Chi screamed. We turned around to her, and she screamed out loud, "There's another person watching us." And she was right. It was another person, also a clown, but with green hair and longer legs. We knew at this moment we had to go. Chi-Chi and Mike ran away, and we didn't hesitate to follow. Chi-Chi ran to her room, and we ran upstairs to ours. We then met up with Eli, who was already in the room talking to our mom. Our mom gave us the biggest hugs, and we were confused. Like, did she know what happened? Eli explained that he told our mom what happened to him. Turns out, Eli was hiding in the apartment complex's courtyard, and he heard footsteps thinking it was Zach. He hid behind the bush and barely saw the person as they stepped in front. He thought Zach was about to catch him, but then he heard Zach's voice calling Eli. Eli turned and was found by Zach, saying, "I found you." That's when he turned back and looked up, and a clown was looking directly down at him. Eli ran away with Zach, and they both went to his apartment to tell his parents what happened. We explained what happened to us, and our mom was happy that we were all okay. I wished it ended there, but it didn't. Later that night, everyone was asleep, but I got thirsty. In the middle of the night, I went to get a bottle of water from the fridge, and I heard noise coming from outside the window, and looking back now as an adult, it was very stupid of me, but I went to the noise. It was weird. I remember questioning how was it possible for something to be knocking against the window, especially at the second floor. This part is what really scared the living shit out of me. When I lifted up the blinds, I came face to face with the clown. The same exact clown my sister and I saw. He was looking right at me, and that's when I screamed and ran to my mom. She came out, and when I went to show her what I saw, like a cliche from a horror movie, it was gone before she could see it. Luckily, my mom was a good mother, and she believed me. Last October, I went to a pumpkin patch with my friends. It was right after school, and the air was cold and crisp. The leaves were orange and yellow, and the ground was covered in fallen leaves. We had been looking forward to this all week. The patch was small but busy. Families were walking around, kids were running with their parents, and the smell of baked goods from a small stand filled the air. We parked and grabbed a small wagon to carry our pumpkins. There were rows of pumpkins everywhere, big and small. We walked down one row and found some nice pumpkins to pick. Everything felt normal at first. My friend Kevin dared me to pick the biggest pumpkin at the back of the patch, the one that was near a little wooded area. I laughed and agreed. The path to the pumpkin was narrow. The further we went, the fewer people we saw. The laughter and chatter from the main area faded behind us. I noticed the trees around us were thick, and the shadows were long in the late afternoon sunlight. The wind made the leaves rustle, and it sounded like whispers. I tried not to think about it. When we reached the pumpkins, I noticed something strange. Behind the pumpkins, near the trees, there was a figure. At first, I thought it was a scarecrow. It was standing very still with a hat on, and its arms were out like a cross. But then I realized it was too thin to be a scarecrow, and the hat moved slightly, like someone breathing under it. "Do you guys see that?" I whispered. Kevin turned and looked, but he shrugged. "Probably just a decoration," he said. I wasn't sure. I had a bad feeling in my stomach. I picked up the pumpkin quickly, trying not to stare. The figure didn't move from beyond the tree. It just stayed there. We started walking back to the main area, but I kept glancing over my shoulder. The figure seemed closer. I couldn't tell if it was moving or if my eyes were playing tricks on me. Kevin noticed I was acting weird. "Stop looking back," he said, laughing. I didn't want to. Something about it made my skin crawl. When we reached the edge of the pumpkin rows, I turned to get one last look. The figure was gone. I felt a small sense of relief, thinking maybe it was just a person walking behind the trees or someone's costume. We headed toward the stand to pay for our pumpkins. The path was slightly darker now. The sun was almost gone, and the shadows were thick. As we passed the wooded area again, I heard a crack. It sounded like a branch snapping. Kevin didn't hear it. I stopped and said, "Did you hear that?" Kevin shook his head. I turned slowly, and my heart stopped. The figure was there again, about 10 feet behind us. No arms out this time, it was just standing. Kevin noticed I stopped moving and asked what's wrong. I tried to speak, but my throat felt dry. The figure started to tilt its head like it was studying us. Then, seemingly without moving its legs, it started to move forward. It didn't even look like it was walking normally. It looked more like it was gliding, almost floating over the leaves. I grabbed Kevin's arm and we ran toward the stand. Our pumpkins bounced in the wagon as we ran. I could hear leaves crunching behind us, faster than they should have if it was just walking. When we reached the main area, people were still there, laughing and eating. I looked back. The figure stopped at the edge of the pumpkin rows. It just stopped and watched. We paid for our pumpkins and got in the car as fast as we could. I didn't look back again. On the drive home, I told Kevin to promise me he didn't see anyone like that. He said he didn't, that he only saw the pumpkins and the trees, but I knew I hadn't imagined it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that damn figure standing there. I couldn't stop thinking about the way it moved, the way it looked like it glided. I tried to convince myself it was a Halloween prank, but it didn't feel like a joke. That was a family-friendly pumpkin patch, and that would be way too scary for little kids. A few days later, I read online that someone had reported seeing a strange person in a costume at the same pumpkin patch. They said it was late afternoon near the trees, and the person didn't speak or move like a normal person. The story didn't give names or faces, just the report. I haven't gone back to that patch since. Every October when the leaves start falling and the air gets cold, I remember that figure. I remember the way it moved. And I remember thinking, if it had wanted to, it could have followed us all the way to the car. I still don't fully have an explanation for it. I tell this story to friends, but most think I'm exaggerating. I'm not, and I could still picture it standing behind those trees, watching us.